holy shit, it worked. It's the first time I've ever actually got that to do anything. This is really cool. Hey, it's Ryan Lindley. It's the Sheeple Shepherd podcast. I think it's like episode 15 or something. I didn't even look before we got on. I was too excited. I've got my good friend Brad with me today. He's going to pop in and we're going to have a little chit chat about some things that people seem to forget about during pandemics. Who would have thought that you would ever forget about serious, crazy things that would be headline news if it wasn't for pandemics? I also want to talk a little bit, and I tell you, I'm so happy. The Ontario Human Rights Commission. So these anti-vax idiots screaming and yelling about their rights and their, freedoms, and it's against my human rights to ask me for my vaccine status. Well, guess what? It's not. It's not against your human right. It's actually against my human rights for you to be a vector of disease and a fucking plague rat. And they've agreed with me. So what they said, now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but they actually issued an official statement of position. And they said receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. Actually, you know what? Hang on. I gotta do this. Hang on one sec. Where is it? Because let me start it the way I wanted to, because this is how I read it in my head. Ready? Dear Penthouse Letters, receiving a COVID-19 vaccine is voluntary. At the same time, the OHRC's position is that a person who chooses not to be vaccinated based on personal preference does not have a right of accommodation under this code. Oh, it's like sex. It's like reading a Penthouse letter. After 19 months of this shit, finally, the walls are closing in, folks. Go get a vaccine. And check out my post at deanblundell.com. I wrote an article about it yesterday. It's great. I'm so happy. I can't even tell you. You know what? I'm gonna bring Brad in. Brad can tell you just how happy I'm sure he is with that news as well. Brad Hopper, ladies and gentlemen.
Ryan, how are you?
How are you, pal?
Are you? Doing well. Just
good.
Coming off the shift.
Yeah. I'm keeping you awake. You're back in again tonight, is it?
Tomorrow morning.
Or tomorrow.
So
tomorrow morning.
We're
and you were
hours.
24-hour shifts. That's fucked. That's not right. Like I'm good for like 8, maybe 10 hours, and I don't save cats from trees. I don't run. I don't cook gourmet meals in kitchens in a fire hose. I don't do any of those things.
Right. Yeah, you got to remember, if you're working hard, you can't work 24 hours, right? We're the insurance policy a lot of the time. So we're admitting, it's a great gig. But
there's
got to be Friday night at the end of the month.
I was going to say.
Which is what we just had and what I'm meeting you after.
There's got to be, and yeah, of course, like we make the jokes, but we know you guys are busy, and when you're working. I couldn't even do half of the things I see. Like there's a training facility that's not too far from my house, and you see them every once in a while, and it's like you got to carry that up, that wearing that. Get fucked.
That's right. Yeah.
What happens? Like, what about those? Like, there has to be. It's not like when you were a paramedic, but like when you're a firefighter. If there's like back to back, like, is there any difference in downtime? Like, do they at least like shift units from other areas to maybe cover you off so you're not working? Like, how the hell are you supposed to do that 24 hours?
I have the privilege of being in a small town service. So that means really there's 2 stations. We have 60 career guys working.
Yeah.
So any major occurrence leads to a callback. So if we're out on a scene for a long time, we do have crews called in, but they're our own guys. We have no external sources to call. You can, when things get really bad, dig into the other agencies, but we're pretty self-sufficient. And
no, I didn't mean like outsiders. I meant like from different stations.
Yeah.
Like a different station
Well,
can come in and cover.
2 career guys, right? 2 career halls.
Right.
And one house fire, one significant gas leak, whatever it may be, requires us all to be there.
Yeah.
So it does get busy. It does. We're relied on for every call type that comes in, either from helping from lifting someone back up off the floor, or structure fires and everything in between. Um, it can be tiring. It can be just some bad timing. And this particular shift I'm just coming off was a rare end of the month Friday where it worked us a bit, I will admit. And now I got a 24-hour turnaround to go back in for another 24 on Sunday. Just the nature of the
Wow.
game, get a bit of rest and go back. For the most part, as you know, it's a good gig. There's a reason it's popular and a reason people want it. It affords a good lifestyle for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. There's a little more flexibility within your personal life than it was when you were, say, a paramedic, where you've told some
Still am a
horror
paramedic.
stories.
Still
Sorry,
am.
but like a full-time paramedic
Exactly.
when you were
Yeah.
doing it
I left for a
full-time.
reason. I left for a reason.
Yeah, I imagine as much, and it's a tough gig. It's a tough timeline. Yeah. There's no stopping. Like it's from call to call to call. We were talking the other day offline about eating your lunch on your lap while you're driving, and like
Right.
just trying to at least get something into you for the shit. Like it's insane, right? And I
I
like
was
what you said
fortunate.
about
Go ahead.
it too. You said that it was a great job but a horrible career, and that's so true. It's a great rewarding job, but the actual career side of it is it's not sustainable in the current way we operated in this province. That's for sure. What do you make of the difference in both services, fire and paramedic services, between 20 December 2019 to today? What's the major change for you guys?
Um, let's just say increased workload without increased resources. That's the gist of it. And
Yeah,
very tough working conditions. Our world has been flipped upside down now with the COVID screening that we're all familiar with now. You encounter it almost everywhere you go, day to day life. We have those same screening questions, maybe a little bit more detailed every time we contact an individual on a
for
call.
sure.
So now we're dealing with individuals that are often obtunded or deceased, or unable to answer our questions, and that automatically puts them into a fail category for COVID screening. So that means it's all hands on deck, where we have the gowns, the masks, two sets of gloves, eyewear, face shields, N95 masks instead of surgical masks. And we're doing this outside now. We're doing this on the city streets with the various calls we're dealing with different crises going on in our population on top of or within the pandemic. So
And
the
time matters when it comes to a lot of these, right? So you're taking 3 or 4 minutes before actually contact, like having physical contact with a patient, just to get yourself protected before offering assistance and rendering aid to the person that needs it. Like that's gotta be, like, the seconds count in your job.
very good point. And it's really not felt full fledged by anyone but us showing up at the scene and having, say, a family member running outside, panicked, worried, having the worst day of their life, really, at times, saying, "Can you come help quick?" And you're saying, "Sorry, I need 3 or 4 minutes to put on all these layers of clothing." And then you're trying to ask them the screening questions on top of them saying their spouse has just died. Yeah,
Yeah.
have you traveled anywhere? Have you been to a facility that's been screened positive for COVID? Any of these, it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. It's a headache, and our services are absolutely delayed. It's inevitable because we're not gearing up in the truck. We have to have our seatbelts on. We have to have our protective equipment on en route. I can't take my seatbelt on and gown up.
Yeah.
So there's a delay at
What's
the other
the
end too, Ryan.
oh,
At
really?
the other end too, yeah. Well, you got a picture. There's on a medic scene. There'll be at least two of us there, and one of us will hop in the back with the patient, pretend the patient care, and the other one's driving. So that driver has to take it all off before they hop into our clean driving conditions up front. So now we get to the hospital. I'm able, say I'm in the back, I'm able to wear my gear.
Of
But now we
course.
arrive at the hospital, and if we're doing CPR, doing whatever, if it's a hot call, I have to wait for that driver to now re-gown, re-glove, re-everything to open the back door so that we can even proceed into the hospital. So there's delays at both ends that people don't even realize.
So you're
It's
looking at probably like a cumulative of about 15 minutes of just 3 minutes getting it on, 3 minutes taking it off to drive, 3 minutes putting it back on to open that door to help
yeah.
you in the back. Like
I
that's a
would say
lot of time.
6 to 8 minutes, I would say, is a fair assessment on
Wow.
every call that we cannot.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to pass the screening anyway. And
Yeah,
our
of
most
course.
sick patients can't pass the screening because they can't answer the questions properly. So instantly, we're into that mode. Um, we're also at a point now where one of my last shifts on the ambulance, it was pouring rain. We had a lot of weather moving through the area, and I'm dealing with this PPE outside.
Hmm.
How efficient is it? No one can answer that for us. No one can tell us what it's like if we're wearing these paper gowns that are designed for sterile emerge settings or clean settings and environmentally controlled settings. What happens when I wear it in the rain? What happens with my mask? I can't see anything. My face shield's got rain all over it.
Yeah.
So, and it fogs up. I'm sure you've encountered some of that with the mask. It's just twice as bad with a full face shield on. So,
Yeah, if anybody's ever worn glasses while wearing one of those masks, just make that even worse. Being out in the rain with the cold and it's, oh
absolutely,
man.
it's
Yeah,
a
I
mess.
couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. And then, like you say, what's the efficacy of the protection at this point? Well, nobody knows. Nobody can tell you because they've never really studied this before because they never really had to worry about it. You guys just put a slicker on and
And
normally
on
and just
the other end of things, the fire side, I've seen it where we've gone to a call. The one particular one I'm talking about was a hotel that had a cooking incident and it needed to be ventilated. The halls were full of smoke. When we arrived, we're in our fire gear. We're wearing all of our proper SCBAs and our bunker clothing, if you will, our protective wear. And we get up there and we realize this floor is being used as a isolation floor for possible COVID exposure patients or people that are in quarantine. So now we have
right.
fire gear on that we have to return to the hall, and it's not as easy as taking a gown off. Now we have full decontamination of our fire gear and switching all that out, trying to get our spare equipment on board, and it's a complete mess. So
Holy
there's that. I can't safely wear that gear and then walk into someone else's residence or my workplace with it on. So it's all got to, and it's quite a process to launder that stuff. It's not like
yeah, and
washing the
it's
dish towel. It's got its own special process through different,
yeah.
we call it the extractors. It's just a heavy duty washing machine, but it's a lengthy process. And the drying is air dryers. Takes days to dry it. So then you got to dig out the spare gear, right? So it's been very uncomfortable for us. We haven't been supported fully all along. The fire side,
Yeah.
especially, we had our department had a hard time even securing some of the equipment at the beginning, like a lot of these institutions. They wanted to throw us to the wolves, but we couldn't find a gown or a proper N95 mask or whatever the flavor of the day was at the time when it was
Right.
changing so much.
I remember them talking about it a lot, and one of the things a lot of people don't realize is fire attends most medical calls as well because sometimes fire gets there first and is able to get there first and render aid first and until paramedic services arrive and it's it's that's it's such a mess between the two.
It's
I just don't understand how it wasn't looked at. Like I remember when they rolled the vaccines out and they didn't include paramedics on the primary list, and it's like what? How could you not? Like you just said, you're showing up at somebody's house that's unconscious. You don't know where they've been. You don't know this person at all. Do they have COVID? Were they exposed to COVID? Do you know that you don't know? So why wouldn't we have wanted to protect that? That's the true front line is the person showing up, rendering that aid, moving the person to a hospital, to the front line in the hospital. That it made no sense. It made absolutely no sense.
and we are the true vectors in that sense. So we will not only go into your house, then I'm going to go to a long-term care facility. Then I'm going to move into a shopping mall. Then I'll be back in the hospital. Then I'll be back in my hall. Like we were the ultimate
Moving
spreaders,
everywhere
if you would.
for
And the
sure.
support initially, you're right, it was completely disgusting that we were having to fight. And another point that's been brought up with us before is in my region, a lot of the larger centers were shipping known diagnosed COVID patients from their units, their ICU units to ours. to ease the burden on their system. So we were willingly, as an employer, staff, but the employer was willingly able to accept and house these patients in our facilities, but they were using us as the transit mechanism. We were actually going to larger centers empty just to pick someone up and bring it back. These are full-time, fully trained medics that are being drawn from the region. A lot of it was some upstaffing over time, but we needed those resources in-house. And
yeah, for sure.
This whole time, the province, Ford himself, hadn't given us our second vaccination yet, hadn't given us full approval. So
it makes no sense.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear. Your mic changed though. I think you dropped out of your ears.
Dropped. So I'm gonna try this.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. I'll just be a loudmouth and keep talking while you're getting that figured out. No problem.
I'll relink into this. I don't have the fancy setup that you guys have, so this should.
It's all this is a soup can with a piece of foam that I found on the ground, and this is an old car part here that holds it together. And I think here, I'm gonna take Brad out for now. You got to understand where our front line comes from when they're talking about this kind of thing, and the frustration they must be feeling, like screaming, saying, guys, like just slow down, realize that we all got thrown into this pandemic all together really fast. Everybody just kind of, threw some stuff together, but that's the really important stuff that they should have been a little more focused on. Let's see if we got Brad. We got you back. Now I got no audio on you. What the hell happened? Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Welcome. Welcome to technology. This is fantastic. Anyway, I'll keep going. What I brought Brad in today to try and talk about was the things that are happening, and we've kind of gotten into it now, the things that are happening with the outside of COVID. Everything is COVID. Everything that we see on the news, the media, social media, even these podcasts, our shows, they're very COVID centric. And the problem is there's still life going on in the background, and not all of that life is good. And a lot of that life wasn't good on the way into COVID. So let's see. Do we have you now? There you are.
Unreal. I'm sorry, Ryan. Can you hear me?
That's okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. That's cool. Not a big deal. So what I was saying was the collateral issues and the issues that are in the foreground, in the background as COVID hits the foreground for the last 18, 19 months. And those are things like the opioid crisis and domestic abuse cases. And like, just, these are the things that you see on a daily basis in your job. The opioid crisis being, as you put it, the epidemic within the pandemic. And you're absolutely right. It's in the last, and the pandemic doesn't help because people are trying to, find an escape. They're drinking too much. They're, smoking way more pot than they used to. And, also turning to things like opioids. And with the fentanyl issues that we have in this country now, overdoses are on an explosive rise, and you're the first person to see it. Yeah, I can hear you. This You can find the Sheeple Shepherd podcast hosted at deanblundell.com. We're also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor Spotify. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, I think we're back. I think we're okay now. Brad, are you with me?
I told you, I'm not an IT guy. I am not.
And so you know what you are? you're our next Mike Bullard, is what you are.
Oh no. Oh no. I love the guy. I got to take that as a compliment, but yeah.
You should. Oh, so I can get rid of the caption that says "back in a sec." I can put your Twitter handle back up there, and
Nice.
you know what's really funny? I've got audio, but now your video's frozen.
Go on.
Hang on, I'm gonna take you out. And I'm gonna put you back in. welcome to podcasts in the year 2021, where it's you can't have somebody in your house, but you can have their technical difficulties beside you the whole time. There's Brad. I think you're here.
Here now. Yeah.
I can. No, you keep that. There you go. Now I can see you. This is this is pretty funny. That's okay. Yeah. It makes for good content. It makes for fun. People can laugh at us and poke fun at us and give us horrible ratings on the podcast. It's great.
Hopefully,
where did we leave off?
We were talking about the lack of support. We were talking about how they were shipping COVID to us, but not giving us full COVID protection. Right. That's where this whole thing started. And that was in the last wave. That was in the third wave. Now we're looking to Alberta, and Alberta's shipping more to us now. We're getting word of it now that our region's likely to be getting some of those Albertans that were left hung out to dry by their leaderships.
I just read a tweet from one of the ICU nurses or doctors. I can't remember who she was, but she was saying that they're finally at full capacity. Red Deer, I believe it was, and Red Deer is going to start ferrying people by air to Ontario to get some help. And best summer ever, Alberta. Good job.
We're fully protected this time, right? So far. Yeah, we don't know about the boosters. We don't know about anything.
Yeah, no, I don't know. We're so reactive rather than proactive, it seems, and a lot of unknowns. I understand that, but I don't know if I buy a whole lot of they're like this Kieran Moore, Dr. Moore, denying that. Yeah, and he was denying that there's any spread going on in schools. A lot of people were advising him that they should have done it in reverse. Yesterday, they announced that they were going to open capacities up for like Blue Jays games and stuff, but they've left restaurant capacities lower. And they said, why would you do it that way? Why, if you're going to slowly reopen things to vaccinated people, why not use the restaurants as the a slow entry back into the normal that we're looking at for now, because of things like pinch points in major stadiums, like we're funneling in bathrooms and concessions. Like it makes no sense. But hey, I'm no public health expert. I don't know. It just seems like common sense is not something that we employ when it comes to making these decisions very much anymore. And that went along with you guys and the vaccines and not having you guys front and center on the vaccines. And what I was alluding to before we had the technical glitch was, it's not just COVID. The media has thrown COVID in our face. Social media, we've done it at deanblundell.com, all the podcasts, a lot of the stuff. Thankfully, we've got the sports guys that usually stay away from it, which is a nice break. But and Bonzi's great, but then Bonzi had his vaccine debacle, which he's still going through. But what happened was, it took away the focus of the other epidemic that was really on our doorstep for the last couple of years and exploded right before COVID. And that was the opioid and fentanyl problem that we've got here. And that's something that you see every single day on both services, fire and paramedic service. And tell us what you're seeing on that end. Which is a bigger problem for first responders like yourself at this point? Would you say it's COVID or would you say it's opioids?
It's a no-brainer. It's opioids.
It's opioids.
A no-brainer. COVID's been put on the forefront, Without COVID right now, we would be talking about nothing but the opioids and the overall shift in usage. And it's starting to spread demographics. Like, it's not the same person that it used to be. It's starting to spread. And now, is this an artifact of the pandemic now increasing the spread of use that's happening? I think so. But this opioid crisis was ongoing when the pandemic hit, and suddenly it just became back page news. And the hardest part for us is we're now fighting that crisis while having to screen and protect ourselves for COVID. Let's be honest, COVID is nasty. It can be nasty, but it's not,
Absolutely.
it's far from the worst thing we've been dealing with for years. We've
Hmm.
had to deal with the hepatitis, the HIV, all the bloodborne pathogens, the TBs, and and now suddenly COVID is dominating how we do every single call. Not none of these other things. It's almost like you show up, and we joke all the time, very much jokingly, but it's like, oh, you're negative for your COVID screening, so we're safe. We really don't need to do anything. Apparently, like, all the other pathogens are no longer concerned. You're good. We'll
Everything's
just walk
fine.
you in the
Yeah.
door. And that's the kind of the falsisms that have come now with the smoke and mirrors that honestly COVID's creating at times. It's literally masking a major problem. And if COVID were to miraculously go away tomorrow, the world would be devastated as what's going to be kind of left behind in the dust that it leaves with the opioids. And what you and I were talking before, it's also the illicit drug use in general. We're seeing a huge rise in our area in meth, like methamphetamines, and the reason for that. And I've talked firsthand with these patients of mine, and that we speak frankly is accessibility and cost. Some of the opioids are getting a little more difficult to get, a little more, and they often have their own vices on their preference of opioids and that. But the meth craze is actually picking up. Like, when's the last time? Like, I can't tell you a shift where I haven't had either an opioid or a meth overdose in the last
Really?
6 months, and there's literally multiples. Like, we're just another one,
Wow.
another one, another one. And that's one truck that I would be on, or one crew I'm with. And alongside me are all the other crews doing the same thing. So when you add them all up, it's become completely, as I've said to you many times, that we have an epidemic within a pandemic.
But
And
that
there's no other
pandemic
way
is
to.
overshadowing everything,
That's
and
right.
including any sort of public awareness campaigning that we normally would be doing. I remember before the pandemic, there was a big push on getting people to put Narcan kits in their glove boxes, and like, to be part of the solution, help out. They were talking about Good Samaritan rules, and how you were exempt from charges if you were in possession of, like, just the list went on and on about the things that we were doing to try and curb the problem. But then COVID hit, and that messaging stopped.
Yeah.
The problem
You
didn't
know what
stop, but
else?
the messaging did.
The network of resources required for these individuals that are dependent on these drugs also stopped. It's one thing to say there's no social gatherings. It's another thing to say that someone that relies on a weekly, biweekly, daily meeting to cope with their addictions is
Hmm.
now told you're not allowed to leave the house. It's such
Yeah.
a double-edged sword. And now these people are also able to, the opiates are available online. They're coming in from overseas, and they're sitting alone at home, and no
Yeah.
one's seen them anymore. They're not going to their meetings, and it's hitting extra hard. And then you have all the other stressors of the pandemic further increasing the mental health issues that are then leading to more usage. And it's just a vicious cycle that goes around and around. And unfortunately, COVID issues can be addressed the way they're being addressed, but the other issues cannot be left behind because they are going to get to a point of no return as well. And the social infrastructure is going to fail. It's just going to fail. All the meantime, they're talking right before COVID hit of cutting our services and slashing paramedic budgets and
That's
let alone
right.
slashing. There's not even any growth, let alone slashing. Like, I mean, like, come on, we need to increase as the population's aging, as the socio-economic challenges are happening. We need to have more resources, not even the status quo of what we have now. We need more. And they were talking, our provincial government was coming in, and we had some management that were actually quite, they were fretting as to what was going to happen with all the downsizing that was predicted under the current Ford government before COVID hit. So we don't know where it's going to leave us.
I had a conversation with somebody not that long ago about, and I believe I brought it up with you on the phone the other day, and it was addiction, education, every single socio-economical problem that we have eventually ends up in the ER. And that means you're the guy that gets them there. You're the guy that goes and finds them and brings them to the ER. So at every aspect, because one leads to another, it's a domino effect. And we've seen it up close and under a microscope during this pandemic, because some have found no other way to cope other than to turn to drugs or alcohol, or, suicides are another thing. Like these are real major problems, but they all involve you. Every one of them involves you, and we're going to cut funding and staffing and resources to our frontline paramedics. Like, it makes no sense. Like, there's no sense at all.
And suicides were always one of those unspoken crimes. I don't know what to call it, unspoken calls by the media. They're not advertised, and rightfully so. We hear about a motor vehicle accident on the nightly news, but you don't then tune in and hear of the suicides. And I will be straight up honest with you, me personally, in the 2 years since COVID's been around, I'm going to call it 2 years, in the 18 months or whatever it's been, I have had more suicide calls that I've personally attended than the previous 18 years before that combined.
Wow. That's
so it's real. It's real.
Yeah, that's staggering. That's a staggering stat, because I remember in the first couple of waves of this nonsense that we're stuck in, I remember that a lot of people were using that as a defense in saying you got to leave everything open, and I was a little more vocally opposed to the idea of letting guards down in the hopes of it helping the mental health aspect in the beginning. But as obviously time has gone on, and you can see it, and you see it with your own eyes, it's like, wow, you know what? This is a real problem. Like, it really is a problem. And it's affecting every single facet, I guess, from kids to adults to wealthy to poverty to middle class. Like, mental health doesn't care where you are, who you are, or what you make, or what color your skin is, or, what neighborhood you live in. It just needs to be looked at. It needs to be dealt with. And like you say, these programs, you close these doors and they have nowhere to turn. It's the sad reality is this is what's happening. Like, we're losing people because of it.
The call types have almost flipped for us too. We're seeing now parents unable to cope with the younger generation that are substance dependent, and they're the ones that are creating, potentially contemplating suicide or pursuing.
Yeah.
It was always the notion before, it was more of a young person's thing or a middle-aged thing, and we're not just seeing that anymore. We're seeing kind of reverse role. It's just thrown the entire, what we used to call normal, into a complete upheaval. There is no normal anymore. There is no unexpected. I have not seen, we used to get surprised when we would have a VSA or a dead individual under 40 years old. We were talking about that the other day in the crew room. We were talking like a 20-year-old thing used to raise your eyebrows, a 20-year-old person that's no longer with us. And now it's just,
of course,
it's there. And there's a lot of doom and gloom that comes with it. And there's not much, I don't know. I don't feel that I have an answer. I don't. What's happened though is we're dealing with the effects of decisions made previously, and the lag's it's lagged, and it's gonna come through. We need to make sure our next steps moving forward prevent another wave of it coming through afterwards. What we're dealing with now, we have to deal with, and we have to get through. And you mentioned Narcan earlier, and the distribution of Narcan and the frequency in that. We actually see Narcan given more by bystanders and by other users and by the general public than us. We show up, we carry it, but generally they've already had it, which is
Wow.
a great thing. It is a good thing, but it also, there are the ones out there that like to up the ante, and we've seen it. Now that Narcan is everywhere, if you and I were sitting together in a room, Ryan, we'd be a little more, here, you watch my
Oh,
back. I'm going to try a little more. I don't know where this is going to take me, but you got the Narcan, so hang on. And
holy
we'll quite,
shit.
yeah, it's almost like they've decided it's not just a rescue tool. It's a way for me to see how far we can push this, and you're going to be my partner, and we're gonna ride it.
Oh, wow.
You show up sometimes, and there's 6 or 7 individuals that are all overdosed. I mean, no one expected multi
There's one
casualties.
there's one guy with just pens everywhere, just jamming them in the
Exactly.
legs,
Yeah. Or
or
you don't even know who called. You don't even know who made the call. You show up, and where do
oh
you
my
start?
God.
It's no different than
Yeah.
showing up to the old multi casualties on a highway where you'd have 6 vehicles involved. Where do you start? And we're seeing that in some of these residences and settings now. But there's a lot out there people aren't thinking about or
That's
realizing. I
shocking.
don't think they should think about it. A lot of ignorance is bliss, but there's a whole dark side to COVID beyond the vax, anti-vax argument. And we're not alone. We're first responders out there. There's long-term care workers that are dealing with their terrible messes, terrible, terrible situations, and they're putting their best foot forward. Um, we had to have resources available to us during all this. Literally, the kid delivering me a pizza at the hall is as vital in this chain of survival as us going out to the call.
Really?
And and the entertainment factor. So we have podcasts we listen to, we have music we listen to, we have animals we go and hang out with after shift. We have a dog.
Yeah.
It's all part of the chain, and everybody needs to realize there's no more important than of one aspect of it than the other. And it was to the point that, and I was not alone with my companies, my services that I work with my coworkers. When the pandemic pay came out, you remember that fiasco?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. My
two
wife
bucks an
was part
hour
of that.
extra.
Ashley.
So for me, and I was not alone in this. We signed up for a job, and we had a job to do, and
Mhm.
I get paid well to do it. And unfortunately, a pandemic rolled through. I don't need the person that's making minimum wage bringing me pizza needs that pandemic money. Take it. There's no need to pay that to us. There's no need. And some will argue, I'll have the odd colleague that's like, well, we're really doing miraculous things here. It should be us. But I wholeheartedly didn't understand that aspect of it, or how it just dried up. How are we not still
Yeah.
getting pandemic pay? It was great. Some people loved it, and it was really good for those that were in what people are now realizing is essential service: restaurants, gas stations. We can go on and
I
on.
believe. I believe actually one of and it was a proud Canadian moment was Chapman's ice cream factor, like the place where they make Chapman's ice cream.
Yeah,
They instituted it, and then they announced we're keeping it. We're letting them keep we're not going
good.
to take it away. And like, yeah,
And my
it's
theory
ice
was,
cream, but
personal
people
thought,
need ice cream.
right? And take that from, don't give me the pandemic pay. We're doing well. We're supported, and we have resources around us. And there's some flaws in that whole thing. But the poor lady that's checking my groceries out, that's forced to be out there, give it to her longer. Take it,
Yeah,
and that was kind of the general consensus that went around, and no one understood why it would end. How can you just bring
yeah.
it in? The pandemic's not over, so why is the pandemic pay over? It was such a political catch, if you will.
It was window dressing to stifle another issue at the time,
And they
and
never
that's all
thought of the
that.
future.
No.
Like, it's not. Did they plan on running it till the pandemic was over? No, but
Well,
I
it's not like Ontario has like $5 or $7 billion that they're just sitting on or anything kicking around that they could have used that for. But you know,
yeah, no.
no
Why spend
bigs.
it all? Why spend it all?
Yeah. So
Um,
the PSWs are already severely underpaid. That's a profession in this in long term care and in hospital settings that is crucial. And there's a reason why there's such a high turnover rate and such a low staff influx for those, is because they get paid like shit. So
Yep.
who wants the job, especially during a pandemic? Nobody wants it. So
And unless
you're
you
right.
laid eyes, right? You lay eyes on a PSW doing their job, even us, we're like, I don't know how they do it.
No,
Good for them. They're
my
angels.
wife comes
They're
home.
angels.
My wife comes home. Ashley comes home, and will tell me the shit they literally the shit they go through
Mm-hmm. Yep.
every single shift. And she does what she can in her job. She's got a bit of flexibility to be able to lend a hand when applicable, and she'll help out when she's got lift training and all that stuff. So she knows what, like, she's not technically the same as a PSW for those certifications, because it's so regimented in the homes, and that's great. But at the same time, I think everybody should be, you should teach the sanitary workers how to lift a patient, just in case they happen to be walking by and
Yep.
this poor PSW is on the. So there's a lot of things that need overhauling. We follow a lot of people, a lot of advocates on Twitter. Dr. Vivian Stamatopoulos is one of them, and she's fantastic. And the reforms that are required for long-term care, for healthcare, for nurses, for PSW, like, and watching what she posts, it's like you say, it's things that the general public like me, I don't see. I don't see the struggles that you see, and it takes conversations like this that you and I are having to bring them to the forefront, to expose people. Like you say, ignorance is bliss at times, but there's some things that they shouldn't be shielded. They should be front and center, and they should be fixed. No questions asked. It should. I've always said emergency services and healthcare are healthcare alone is one of our pinnacles worldwide. People look at Canada when they talk about health. It's healthcare. Why does it not have a blank check? Is my question. Why does why do the people that save our asses not have a blank check? They're not going out and buying Lamborghini patrol cars and like $1 million fire trucks. It just give them what they need, and they're asking for what they need. They're not asking for more. So we could go on about the political end of that for days, but I want to stick to you, because I've kept you with your coming off of a 24-hour shift. What's it like? Let's lighten it up just a little bit. What's it like?
Yeah.
Who's the cook? Who's the cook at the firehouse? I want to know.
Who cooked last night? Who cooked last night? It was me.
It was you.
I love it.
What'd you make? Are you a cook, or are you just a microwave and a five finger?
No. Take pride in my cooking. I love it.
Okay.
We all take turns. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
We have a shift.
Cool.
Every day someone comes in, and it's going to be their turn. Whoever doesn't cook, the rest of the guys and girls clean up. Last night was chicken Caesar salad with a little buffalo cheese garlic bread. Just keeping it light, keeping it whatever. So that the stereotypical chili days, they're there, but they're not constant. You got to feed a bunch of hungry individuals, so you have to keep it somewhat hearty.
I couldn't imagine having, let's do a big Thanksgiving turkey dinner, and then that bell goes off, and you got it's like, oh shit,
all the time. There's been more than one burnt dinner that we had to leave behind, hoping we're not going to be responding back to our own calls, right? And let's reiterate, we're only talking the fire side. We're only talking the fire. The poor paramedics that when I'm there, they're lucky to eat a sandwich out of a Ziploc in the day.
Do you guys share a house with paramedics in your region, or are you guys separated?
In Belleville, when I'm fire, no, we don't. They have their own shacks. When I'm in Kingston, the one station does pair up with as a medic. I am bunked in with the fire guys, but it's in physical nature only. Like the building is separated with walls, and that we just share a garage. Basically, is what happens. But
right.
And there's a lot of ribbon that goes on, but we're never there. We joke around as medics to give them enough ribbon back, but it's
of course.
The fire guys got it figured out. They do, and they have a tough gig, but they do it right, and the respect is there. And I've told everybody I made the jump for a reason.
Yeah.
And I love my job. Love my job. Love both my jobs. I really love being a paramedic. But you
You're a
got to be
paramedic
supportive.
1 day a week, is it, Brad?
Generally, now I'll do about a day a week. I like the job. I like to be able to walk away from it too, though. To do it full time was just too much,
Yeah, of
and that allows
course.
me to keep my license up and practice what I do on the side. Just keep my hands in it, and it's rewarding. It's really rewarding. There's nothing like being in the back of an ambulance with a patient, and I'm not talking about saving lives or anything. You really get to know people. You really do, and
It's one-on-one.
yeah, and there's nothing like it. And I can't explain it to anybody until you've actually connected with someone that you just met on that level, and it lasts. They're not all great.
Anybody?
They're not all great.
No,
I've been
no,
spit
of
on,
course.
punched, but yeah,
By
they're,
partners.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No.
exactly.
It's the I've never met anybody that's actually had an encounter, like a need encounter with a paramedic, that doesn't remember every single detail of that person, about their conversation, about it's such a an ingraining interaction in your life when you're the most vulnerable you can be, and that's who you're clinging to. Like, brother,
It's
don't let me go. So
it's
of
been
course
very
it's
rewarding
going to
that
be
way.
memorable.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
the one of the very the most difficult one of the most difficult things for me is not being able to follow up some of these patients. We're often with someone 20 minutes, and it's a heated, crazy 20 minutes. We drop them off, and we never know again, and we're not privileged to find out. There's the confidentiality rules behind medical health records and that. But I have been privileged over the years to meet. I helped save one young individual's life when he was 16. And for the next 5 years, his mom and him always came to visit the fire hall or the medic station,
Really?
the fire hall, to catch up and just say, we're still doing great. We're here because you, and that means a lot. Like you can't put a value into that. And
No.
it's tough when you have a really emotional, driven call that it actually turns out pretty good in the end, and you really never know. Like, you never know. And I've been approached at the mall sometimes by people that say, you helped my father, my brother, my sister, whatever, and it's so awkward because I don't know if I'm
I don't
doing 10 or
remember you.
12 of these
Yeah.
calls a day, and you can't. And but they, as you say, it's so ingrained in their memory, right? Their contact with us
Yep.
is, and it doesn't belittle what our contact was with them. It's just that
No.
day I probably saw 11 people, and then over the
Yep.
year, how many other people do you see? And it just goes on and on.
Well,
We
that's kind
relate
of
it to
it.
like owning a dog, right? When a dog only knows you, and your whole life for your pup is you. You go out and you
Yeah.
meet other people, you go out, but there's nothing that dog knows other than you and your house and everything. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like that for a brief moment where they don't forget.
It's a it's a good comparison. It's a celebrity encounter, and it's where
Mm.
a celebrity will meet 1,000 people, and you got to meet and of course you're going to remember it, but they're not going to, because they're doing this all day long. So yeah,
And with
absolutely.
with the demands on the system, Ryan, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
The reality of it is you could be having the worst day of your life, and we're coming from someone else's worst day of their life, and we've been to three other worst day of their lives already, and the system is so frail that we are literally having, by the end of the day, if you're the 10th one that we've seen, the 11th one we've seen, we're almost not sure if we're going to be able to ask the right questions anymore, and we're just become numb to it, and the empathy naturally drops because you're exhausted.
Of
And I
course.
feel
No,
for
you're
all
drained.
my colleagues that are doing it full time. It's they're amazing people. They are. And
It's another thing that that has been kind of put in front of our eyes in the last, I'd say the last decade at least, and that would be the mental health of our
oh,
frontliners. And that goes across the board. And it seems that the epidemic in that seems to be with paramedics, and it's unfortunately, rightfully so. Just from the sound of the job, from every single paramedic that I know. I used to work in a field where I worked with a lot of fire guys and a lot of paramedics, and it just seemed like every week one of them on social media was posting about somebody they used to work with and sending
yeah.
condolences and going to planning it's another thing that's, and you want to take away resources from this. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing wrong? Like, why? How could they don't abandon us. We can't abandon them. That's just the way it works. It should work anyway. And I don't envy anybody in that, losing that empathy. Like you say, your empathy drains, you lose that bank, you lose that perspective of yourself where you were before the job, knowing how you would have handled that a week before becoming a paramedic, like it's, and you see the change in yourself, and a lot of people don't like seeing that change in themselves. I don't like seeing what I've seen in myself in the last 2 years because of this pandemic. I'm definitely not empathetic at all towards certain groups of individuals that are doing nothing to help get us through this. And I used to try and find reasoning and try to say, okay, I understand because of this or that. Now I just don't care. It's like, no, this is, we've had long enough to get through your shit. I'm sorry. It's it's not valid to me anymore. And I don't like that. I used to like being able to be patient and be, try to work things out and try to work through it. And now I find myself being rushing myself into a conclusion because I don't have time for it anymore, because we don't have a whole lot of time left on this planet, and I don't want to waste it with you, not you, them. You know what I mean? So
I got you. Yeah, I got
yeah.
you. I unfortunately I've had to make those posts myself in my career.
Yeah.
Those ones.
I can't.
Everybody, but I will say on the same time, like I've made some incredible friends that I've done ridiculous things with. Your colleagues, that your regular partners over the years, the people that you see more than your own family, and you're going into the trenches together, and you don't even bring that home. You don't bring it home.
No.
You don't bring it anywhere, but you can talk freely amongst yourself, and that's a bond that you can't describe, you can't fabricate. And so there's a lot of gratitude for that there too, and we kind of lean on each other. We're dark. We have to have some dark humor in there.
They have to be.
And it's behind closed doors, and I'm sure in today's world it would not do well outside of closed doors, but there's coping mechanisms, right? And there's a lot of funny stories, things that we use to keep ourselves going, but we all wonder. You mentioned mental health. There's no feeling like it every day where I'm like, is this a bad mood? Did I not sleep enough? Or is this something with outside life is kicking in? Or is this PTSD? Is this, what is it? And it just,
or is this just me now? Yeah.
And that's how we all kind of evolve and become, and you never really know, and it's a mess. But I think more than anything, we have each other. And I think a mental health aspect would be a fantastic chat all on its own.
Oh, absolutely. It's for sure.
I'm talking for all of us responders. There's corrections, there's fire, there's Coast Guard, there's security guards, there's
police.
The police,
paramedics.
It just goes.
Yeah.
And the saying out there is, right, in general, 90% of our calls deal with 10% of the population.
Yeah.
So for the rest of my life, I see the population as that 10%. And I've been told more than once, you're just a little jaded. That's what I live in. That's what I dig into. And if you didn't
have a callus, if you didn't grow a bit of a callousness while still having some feeling there, nobody would survive the job. And I've had paramedics and police officers both say to me, imagine if you went into work tomorrow and found out your coworker killed themselves, how would you feel? And I said I'd be devastated. I wouldn't know what to do. Okay, now go to work. Mm-hmm. And then the next week it happens again.
Can I up that once more though? Can I up that to the point that not only do you go to work, but that person then kills themselves in your own region and you're responding to them? It's just layers and layers, and you could go on forever. You could, and it's deep, and we could get pretty intense during this pod. But there's the other sides of it too. Like how many people can say they delivered a baby. That's, you know, and that's the token one everybody always asks with the feel good stories is how many times.
How many babies? How many babies, Hopper?
I'm up to 8 now. Yeah.
8 babies.
Yeah. The story that I've told before, you may have heard, is the same lady
Twice. I did hear
3
this.
years
Yeah.
apart. And I tried to see if she named the first one Brad. No such luck, but she just obviously didn't learn her lesson. But you can't make this stuff up that she's still 3 years later. Yeah, there's been some real good stuff too. Some real feel good stuff.
Yeah, it is a miraculous and a devastatingly miraculous job. There's extremes on both ends.
That's right.
And just that, having that ability to change somebody, literally change somebody's life, not just save it. You could change it by saving it, or by just being there for them, or person in crisis. You're the first guy. Like that's where that reward, and I guess maybe that's where the tank gets a little bit of the fuel back. You know, you get a little more refueled from those. But if those aren't coming at the same rate as the rest, you know, like there's only a certain amount that you can take, and like you say, you deal with PTSD, you deal with substance abuse within the profession, and it's not a sustainable career, but it's a hell of a job. That's like you
right.
say.
100%. So. Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly with you there. And we're governed by so many different bodies in this profession. People don't know. I could lose my job by the Ministry of Transportation. The Ministry of Health could pull my medical ticket. My employer can pull my ticket.
Yeah, that would be the region, like the municipal government.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then I have the physicians that I report to that could then, it's very tough to balance that out on top of all of the stressors. But you know what? We're privileged, Ryan. I'm privileged to be able to do it. I'm privileged that someone will honestly let me in their house and let me have a go, if you will, at the person or thing you love the most.
Absolutely.
How good is that?
You know what? And the fact that you carry that attitude it shows that it takes a different human being than most of us to be able to push through that, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the governmental interference, the bullshit, the PTSD, the everything else, and still come out with that attitude. It takes a special person, man. And I thank you. And I know anybody watching this thanks everybody like you. And I don't know what to say. All I can say is I'm glad to have met you. I'm very, very privileged to have you as a friend, somebody I can call a friend. And hopefully I'm not going to tell tales out of school, but hopefully we see a hell of a lot more of you around here.
I look forward to it, but the privilege is actually all mine.
You think?
To know you, and I contacted you. I don't mind telling people. I heard a pod that you had last week, your last pod. And I was so impressed and so respectful of your views and the way you can deliver a message and what you were conveying. I was like, we need to chat. We have a lot alike. We have different venues. We have different avenues for now that we deliver things in.
Yeah.
But I respect that a lot. And the respect is right back. And we need you guys. I've said that over and over. I need to come home and plug in a pod and just be like, hell yeah, that's what I mean. This is
or watch an election special.
Yeah, take those people that have been protesting in front of my workplace all day and let you guys talk to them. That's what I mean. It's rewarding.
We'll rip them apart for you because we know you can't.
Or the Bondies.
And we do it.
That's right. The Bondies just provide a whole nother level of comic relief.
It's a beautiful...
Honestly, he doesn't even mean it. But he's a great guy, and I love chatting with him, and I respect that, and I'll listen to him all night.
Yeah,
it just gives you a whole
it's a great
view.
Escape. It's a nice escape, and like it's been said, which one of us in our age group would want to live that life?
All of us, but none of us. Does that make sense? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so many days I'd love to know what it's like to grab a bus and just go, but I'm very, very appreciative. The Blundell Network, you guys. You gave me a voice. You've been encouraging the voice to come out, and you provide a great venue for it with a respected audience. And team.
I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you've chosen here to be to have that, because we're the ones that are going to benefit from this relationship more than you know it. So it's great, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here. Anything you want to close with? That anything we haven't talked about? We've only talked for like 4 days here, but
yeah.
Is there anything?
We're nowhere near done. We're nowhere near finished, Ryan. Your discussions, my discussions, we got a lot we can crack into here.
Absolutely.
And I encourage anyone listening or that's curious, that has any questions, they can find me. They can find me on Twitter.
Yeah, let me put it back up.
I get asked questions all the time about our line of work. How do kids get involved? How do you even start something like this? There's a lot of families that have a lot of curiosities. All that I ask is obviously the respectful thing, and your support is all we need. If we have everyone's support, we're limitless. We can keep going.
Absolutely.
And I'll do my best to shroud all that political crap away from me walking into your house to do a job we're supposed to do. And I know all my colleagues are on board with that. It doesn't matter what agency they're with. We're just people. And we've chosen the task. I wasn't forced to do this. I'm not forced to stay. And I'm staying. We're in for the long haul. We'll get through this. And let's just keep supporting each other and be smart.
Absolutely. Brad, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. I really do.
We'll talk to you soon.
Can't wait to chat. Have a good day.
Absolutely. Brad Hopper, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. What a great chat. Even with the technical difficulties, it was worth pushing through. You get a lot of really good insight and good things to reflect on. Like every time I talk to that guy, every single time I put the phone down, or if it's virtually, it's one of those, and you think, and he's opened your eyes to 4 more doors that you didn't even know were there. And I'm so grateful, and I'm so happy to have met Brad. And like we say, you can follow Brad at BradHopper14 on Twitter, not BradHopper12, not BHop14, not anything that Dean says incorrectly on the show. I swear that's become a bit. That's all it is now, and I'm all for it. I like bits. So Brad's a great dude, and you'll see lots more of Brad around here, including the Sheeple Shepherd podcast. I'm sure Bonzi's podcast, he loves having him on there. Dean's podcast, we get to hear about people getting things stuck in their bums when he's on Dean's podcast. I didn't even ask because I knew that's Dean's thing. He promises to save the nuggets, no pun intended, for Dean's show. So anyway, that's it for this end of the podcast. I'm not sure what Ashley's got lined up. I'm sure it's got something to do with Health Canada finally recalling that black oxygen organics crap. They actually got a federal health recall in Canada for this bullshit that they keep on doing. So stick around for that. We'll see what she's got to say. And once again, thanks, Brad. We'll talk to you again, my friend. You can find the Sheeple Shepherd podcast hosted at deanblundell.com. We're also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor Spotify. Thanks for tuning in.